Hi everyone. Just going to leave a couple of minutes just for everybody to kind of enter and join in the chat. But yeah, welcome to the third webinar in our Dive into Scotland Seas webinar series. So we're joined today by the Scottish Seabird Centre and RSPB Scotland to talk all about seabirds. So yeah, thank you very much for taking the time to come and listen to our speakers today. Hope you can see the first screen that we're sharing at the moment. It's just got a little bit of housekeeping about what we're doing in terms of timings. All good? Yeah, thumbs up. Brilliant. Yeah, as you can see, there is a chat area and the Q&A. So as we're going through, feel free to keep popping questions into the Q&A area, and we'll either be answering them via typing or we'll just do it at the end. If you have your question answered, it will go into the answer box, but you can upvote questions by putting the thumbs up. So if you really want a question answered whilst we're doing the Q&A session, then we would appreciate it if you literally just put your thumbs up so you can let us know which one you're most interested in. You can show captions as well if you want any reactions as you're going along. So yeah, that's just the bits of the tab that you need to know. Just leave it another minute just so that everybody's in. Okay, so I'm sure everybody's aware as you came in that this webinar is being recorded and it's going to be uploaded to the Trust's YouTube channel. Any future events as well, you can subscribe to the Eventbrite, and you can also subscribe to the Scottish Wildlife Trust's YouTube channel as well if you want to keep seeing the recordings from these series. Yeah, and at the end, always welcome any feedback. If you guys want to put any feedback into the chat box, let us know as we're going along if there's anything you can't see. So yeah, just keep us informed. Okay, so I think it's probably time to introduce the first speaker of the evening. So we've got Charlotte Foster, who's the Marine Engagement Officer at the Scottish Seabird Centre. So I will hand it over to her.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Jessica, and thank you, Elouise, and the rest of the Living Seas team for having me here. I'm delighted to be able to kickstart this third of the webinar series about seabirds, and that's what I'll be doing. I'll be just starting with a sort of broad overview of the seabirds we have in Scotland, kind of the species we get, the variety, and also a bit of information about the Scottish Seabird Centre as well. So I'm going to share my screen, so hopefully this works. Lovely. So hopefully you can see my slides appearing on the screen there. That's my title slide. And yes, so I'm the Marine Engagement Officer at the Scottish Seabird Centre, which means I go out and about all over Scotland, raising awareness about the amazing variety of seabirds that we have in Scotland. So I'm going to start off really simple. What is a seabird? So we often see lots of different birds at the coast, at the beach, along salt marshes, estuaries, but the true definition of a seabird is a bird that's found in and relies on the marine environment to survive. So generally when we think of seabirds, we think of those that come together in colonies, whether that just be in a few dozen or up to their hundreds of thousands. They congregate together in the breeding season to rear their young. And this happens most often on islands and sea cliffs because they're really safe from predators. They are also, some of them are also known for taking migrations as well. So seabirds that we have in Scotland aren't here all year round. Some of them, it's the spring and the summer, it's when they come back and they're just here for the breeding season. So actually in those peak months, Scotland had over 5 million seabirds in our country, which is absolutely amazing, and which is why Scotland is internationally important for our fantastic seabirds. So they come in all sorts of shapes, sizes, the way they feed, where they live, so much variety. There's about 37 regularly recorded species of seabird that are found in Scotland, and they are grouped together in families. And yeah, all that we take away from this slide is how varied they are. You've got small ones, big ones, ones that will dive headfirst into the ocean to catch fish, others that will scavenge from other seabirds. Amazing variety of birds that we get. So that's just an overview of the sort of family groups we get around Scotland. I'll focus in on a few particular species later on in this talk. But why do they come to Scotland? Well, it's a fantastic place for a seabird to come, especially in the summer months. We have over 18,000 kilometres of coastline. We have 900 islands. 61% of the UK seas is Scottish territory. And that plays host to more than 6,500 species of marine life. So straight away, you can see lots of places for seabirds to come and nest and be safe. There's also lots of potential food for them. The nutrient-rich waters around the coast of Scotland are home to a wide variety of different animals, variety of fish species, which is incredibly important for the diet of our seabirds. So it's really important for us to know more about these wonderful seabirds we get around our coast. Scientists will measure their populations, they'll monitor them to see what their populations are doing over the years. Now, something's been created since 1996 called the Birds of Conservation Concern. This is basically a system which puts birds into different categories of conservation status. So a green category is basically a bird that is of least conservation concern, amber, moderate conservation concern, and red, which is basically they're at their severe sort of worry about the level of conservation or the status of the seabirds that are there. So not many people realise that this exists. So I was just going to put a question to you guys, and there's a poll option here. So we're going to pop a question in the poll here. And out of the 37 birds that we have regularly recorded in Scotland and are recorded as part of this report, the Birds of Conservation Concern, which of these categories do you think contains the most number of species? So just to reiterate, the green is the category that the least concerned, the bird populations are deemed, don't need to worry about them too much. Then it's amber, which is kind of moderate concern. And then it's red, so ones we need to be worried about the most. So of our 37 species, which category do you think contains the most? So I'll give you another 5-10 seconds. It should have popped up on your screen there.
Charlotte, just sorry to interrupt you there. Just to say that quite a few of us can see a grey screen in the middle of your slide. I'm not sure if that's maybe just a buffering issue. I wonder if maybe, can you move back to your previous slide and then come to this one again?
Oh, I tell you what it is, Elouise, it will be the poll box. This has happened to me before. So if I get rid of it, has it gone now?
You're right, that's correct. Yeah, it's gone.
Okay, okay, great, awesome, yeah. Sorry about that. So the poll appeared and the box on my screen, so that's why you were seeing the grey outline.
Oh, thank you for figuring that out, yeah.
That's all right.
It looks like the bars have stopped moving, so I'll just share the results just now. Hopefully you can all see them.
Yes, excellent. So I can see there we've had 5% of people think it's green, 41% think amber, and then a close 55% think it's red. So a lot of us are thinking bird populations, we're a bit worried about them. Most of them are in the red amber category. And yeah, you're not far off. So I'm going to click through. And here is that breakdown. So the 37 species recorded as part of this report, 8 are classified as green, 21 as amber, and 8 are in the red category. So not as many reds as I think people were fearing, which is a good thing. But some examples of those species, so a cormorant is classified as green, A razorbill, a beautiful seabird there, is classified as amber. And a kittiwake, a beautiful delicate gull, is classified as red. Now, the criteria behind putting different birds in these categories is all defined by a series of criteria. Basically, it can be whether they've seen steep declines in the past, whether Scotland holds a high percentage of the overall European population of birds, or whether they are at risk of having, so they're only found at a few specific sites around the coast. There's lots of different criteria which puts these birds in these boxes. And just because one is put in green doesn't mean it's out the woods, that it's completely fine, because these do change, and obviously it can happen. Change can happen quite quickly if you have, say, a really bad event that affects a population or a colony that takes out quite a few birds. So that's just an overall introduction to that system. I'm now going to pick out 3 of kind of the superstars, seabirds, because I couldn't pick my favourites. So I picked the largest first, and the smallest and the most iconic seabird species we get around Scotland. But first we'll go with the largest, which is
Charlotte?
Yeah.
I'm very sorry to interrupt you again. We're still experiencing a grey box on the right-hand side of your screen, and also just above the title, just above Northern Gannet. Can you...
So sorry about this. I wonder if it's my laptop that's not up to date with Zoom. Not sure if there's a way of hiding that bar.
Yeah.
Let's have a look. Nope, not that one.
Sorry about the tech issues, guys, but thank you for letting us know in the chat box. Let us see if we can fix it in the next few minutes.
The joys of tech. How's this for you? Is that a bit better?
Okay, it's got a bit better. The one at the top has disappeared, but the bottom right corner, where we still have a grey box there. Is there anything on your screen?
I don't know what that would be, because I haven't got anything on my screen for that. Shall I try and come out of it and go in again?
Maybe try that. Let's have a go. Thank you, Charlotte.
That's all right. No, I'm sorry. It's me causing all the problems. So let me stop sharing.
The joys of tech.
Indeed. Yeah. Right. Let me share that again. Let's try. I'm just checking. Yes, there shouldn't be any other boxes popping up. Okay. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. Thanks for patience, everybody.
Thank you, Charlotte. Yeah, we've not experienced this with the last 2 webinars, so it's a bit of a new issue for us to try and resolve in this time.
Oh, how do I get rid of it now?
What I'd say is, it is blocking part of the image, but it's not blocking any content. It is a bit distracting though. What we'll maybe do is, how about, yeah, it looks like it's just the bottom right corner just now. Someone commented to say they're happy to keep going. Charlotte, if you're happy to keep going, that's great. But if the boxes do become too distracting, then what we'll do, everybody, is we will meet with Charlotte later to record her presentation separately, and we'll upload that later, okay? But hopefully Charlotte can carry on for now. And thank you everyone for your patience.
Thank you, guys. Honestly, trust me to be the one with the tech issues, hey. But hopefully you can see, the main thing is the pictures, so hopefully you can see at least most of the picture. There's some lovely pictures coming up. So the first one is of the Northern Gannet, this beautiful large white bird with a yellow head with black wingtips. Now this is our largest breeding seabird, and they can actually grow up to have a wingspan of 1.8 meters, even up to 2 meters, which is a number we're very familiar with after going through social distancing during lockdown. So imagine a wingspan of that size. It really is quite magnificent. And there's a picture of it on the screen there. And when they're in flight, they're quite recognizable by those black wingtips. And they often fly like that and almost look like a cross in the sky. So they are, if you see them off the coastline, look for those black wingtips. But generally they are much larger than gulls as well. And they can weigh up to 3 kilograms, which is about 3.5 large cartons of milk, if you were interested. They have a diet of fish, specifically mackerel and herring, kind of medium-sized fish. And the way they catch it is something they're very renowned for. They dive headfirst into the ocean by folding back their wings and plunging at about 60 miles an hour into the ocean to catch fish under the surface. So if ever you're at the coast and you see birds flying high in the sky, suddenly diving into the ocean really fast, it will be our beautiful gannet here. Now they're listed as amber, and that's because they have about 20 locations that they're found around the coast of Scotland, and a large proportion of the European population is found in Scotland when they come back to breed as well. And one of those places is Bass Rock, which is where near to where I am in North Berwick, the Scottish Seabird Centre. And this is the world's largest colony, where about 150,000 birds can be found there at the peak of the breeding season. Absolutely amazing place to be. And I've actually got a video here to show you. So fingers crossed, this works. I know the tech hasn't been my friend this evening, but hopefully this plays for you. And it's just to give you an idea of what it's like to the sound and the birds on the colony. Right, I'm going to stop it there just because I'm aware I'm running out of time a little bit, but that was just a nice video there to show you the close-up of their faces and that beautiful blue ring around their eye as well, which is a really nice feature of the gannet. So from the largest to our smallest, this is the storm petrel. And when I say small, I mean small. They are about 38 centimetre wingspan, and they weigh about 23 to 30 grams, which is the weight of a battery, which is amazing. So they are basically kind of swallow-sized, tiny small birds that feed out in the open ocean. And it's quite rare to see them close to land because they spend most of the time in the open ocean, and they only really come back to land to breed, to nest. And if they do, they come out at night as well. So it is generally quite rare to see these guys close to shore. These guys will feed close to the surface on fish, plankton and crustaceans. And when they do so, they look like this. They almost look like they're walking on water, and it's kind of a characteristic flight path. They sort of skim across the surface of the water with their wings held in a V shape. So really very lovely bird. And this is a lovely image of a bird that's in its nest. They hide in kind of little crevices and rocky locations to build their nest as well. Now, those guys are also listed as amber as well, and they're mostly based sort of the west coast of Scotland is where they're hotspot for these guys. Now, I don't have a video for these guys, unfortunately, but I do have one of the Atlantic puffin, which I've selected because it's possibly the most iconic of our Scottish seabirds and definitely a favourite of people's as well. Now, the puffin is iconic because of that beautiful face, that lovely bright coloured beak. It almost gives it a clown appearance, and they are called the clowns of the sea sometimes. Now, these guys are auks. They belong to the same family as guillemots, things like that. And they're, again, not the biggest of seabirds. They are only about 480 grams, which is 3 average oranges. And height-wise, they only grow up to 30 centimetres as well, which does surprise a lot of people. People think they tend to be a bit bigger, and then they see them up close and they go, oh, wow, that's quite small. These guys have a love of sand eels, which is what this photograph is showing. This puffin here has got a big old beak full of sand eels, and they love them because they're small, but they're packed full of nutrients, really important for feeding their young. I think the record is about over 80 sand eels have been held in a puffin's beak once or so, so they are fantastic at foraging and hunting those little fish. And I have a video here, so hopefully this plays. Now, there isn't the calls in this video, but you can still see the lovely birds on the colony. Lovely. So again, just a little taster there. The beautiful birds, aren't they? Real almost characters. And as you can see, they're found near burrows. So they do actually make burrows on islands, and that's where they rear one chick each year. And these guys are unfortunately listed as red, and they have suffered declines in the past, but it's also because they're restricted to certain areas around the coastline in Scotland as well. So they are a red listed species, which means we are concerned about these guys. But it's not all doom and gloom, because there are people out there who are wanting to help them, and there are fantastic people doing fantastic work in order to help reverse that decline or help move them up the list as well. And that's kind of where we come in. So just to very quickly say, so the Scottish Seabird Centre, we're a marine conservation and education charity based in North Berwick, which is in East Lothian on the Firth of Forth, so kind of east of Edinburgh. And this is our base here, and you can see we've got Bass Rock in the background of that photograph. So we're really close to that lovely colony of northern gannets. And what do we do? Well, we're all about inspiring, educating, motivating people to care for the marine environment so they can go out and protect it themselves, as well as us going out and doing our own work as well. So we do this in 4 ways. We have conservation projects where we'll go out and maintain the local islands to make sure the puffin and other seabirds can return to the Scotland Islands each summer and breed. We also get people involved in citizen science projects as well, so helping to collect data and important information about seabirds all around the coast of the UK and other marine life as well. And we're also involved in a restoration project called Restoration Forth. That's helping to replant oyster beds and seagrass meadows in the Firth of Forth, because it's not just the seabirds we want to focus on, we want to focus on the whole marine environment, because without a healthy marine environment, there won't be any seabirds. So we're all about protecting everything. And we also raise awareness and educate as well. So we have school groups, universities, and the public coming through our doors. And we also create online digital resources available on our website as well. We get the community involved in work wherever we can, whether it be a litter pick, or we also get the science community, and we do online events similar to this, where we'll do online Meet the Scientist events ourselves as well, all about the marine environment. And we also help vulnerable and isolated groups like care home residents and other members of the community engage with the marine environment, even though they can't make it there themselves. And we also give people experiences of being in the marine environment or at the marine environment, whether that be at our centre, in our science kind of centre facility, or out on our boat trips. We try to get people completely immersed, as it were, in the marine environment, so they know what it is that we're trying to protect, and hopefully inspire them to protect it more themselves. So that was a bit of a breakthrough. I'm very sorry about the tech issues, but if you guys have any questions, I know I'm having a Q&A at the end, but that's my email address as well, and you can also find more information on our website at www.seabird.org. Thanks.
Thank you very much for that, Charlotte. That was really great. And thank you for everybody with their patience with the technical issues. I think maybe in the next one, if we can refrain from doing any of the reactions, that might solve it. So no thumbs up or emojis, and then keep it to the chat. And then if you have any questions, feel free to do it in the Q&A. So yeah, we shall move on to Ali Lemon, who is from RSPB Scotland, and he's the Marine Policy Officer there. So yeah, I'll hand it over to Ali.
Thank you. So there is going to be another poll, but Elouise, if you and oh yeah, that's fine. So the wee poll is just asking what you think the greatest threats to seabirds are, and then that's what I'm going to be talking about in my presentation. So I'll just give everybody a chance to respond to that, and I will share my screen. Is that showing up the presentation? Can one of the panelists let me know?
Yes, we can see it. Your
Okay,
presentation is clear. Just to let you know, the bars have been moving quite quickly, but they seem to have stopped now. So I'll end the poll here, and you should all see the results on your screen.
Fab, thank you. Okay, that's really interesting. Good to see. Okay, very interesting. No votes for invasives, marine traffic or offshore development. Interesting. Okay, cool. Thank you very much. So I will just go through my presentation and the picture will become hopefully a wee bit clearer about what the impacts are and how they're impacting on our seabirds. So thank you, Charlotte, for the introductory talk on Scotland Seabirds. They're an amazing group. I'm a little biased. A little interesting fact about storm petrels for you. They have a really nice musky smell. So ringers and scientists really like working with them because they have this really nice smell. Nice smells are not usually what you associate with seabird colonies. So yeah, my name is Ali Lemon and I am the Marine Policy Officer at RSPB Scotland. And I'm just going to take you through some of the threats that our seabirds face, some of the work that we are doing and our partners are doing to try and protect them, and then a wee bit of a focus on marine protected areas, as this is the main area that I work on. So our seas are under a lot of stress, under a lot of pressure from multiple different areas, and our seabirds are therefore also under pressure as well because of the marine environment is under threat. So under the UK Marine Strategy, which is something that all the devolved administrations and the Westminster government are signed up to, they look at how's our marine environment doing, and what they use is 15 different indicators to try and figure out how our marine environment is doing, and it's called good environmental status. At the latest update that was done a few years ago, we were only actually meeting 4 of these 15 indicators. And they were in the green, so they're kind of RAG rated, so red, amber, and green, green being good, amber being we're getting there, red being bad. And unfortunately, with seabirds being one of these indicators, in fact, they are not only red, but they're also moving away from good environmental status. So there is a bit of work to be doing. So we saw the poll earlier on about the threats that our seabirds are facing. So I'm just going to go into a little bit of detail about the threats that we work on at the RSPB and how it ties together for us. So essentially, RSPB's policy work on the marine environment is about trying to ensure that seabirds have a safe place to breed and a safe place to feed, essentially, is what we're looking at. So just to quickly go around the screen of some of the threats that our seabirds face. So INS is invasive non-native species. So this is all about when predators or different species get onto an important seabird area, like Seabird Islands, for example, like the Isle of May or the Shant Islands out in the Outer Hebrides and things like that. And what would happen if we got invasive species on those islands? And the impact of those predators, if they're mammalian, such as the rats that were in the Shant Islands, and the impact that they have on seabirds. But also it can be vegetation as well. So tree mallow on the inner Forth Islands like Elouise and Fidra have been an issue for breeding puffins as well. We also have an issue from fisheries through bycatch. So the issue in Scotland here is the longline fleet that operate up in North Scotland, and the issue they are having on bycatch with fulmars. It's estimated that around 9,000 fulmars are caught every year in the long lines up there. As well, so that you can see that issue, that being an issue long term as well for populations like fulmar, because they're a really long breeding cycle, so it takes them a long time to bolster populations. Another one, and quite a lot, and I think over 50% of you said, was climate change. So that is up there, obviously. So not just from points of view of increased bad weather and increased storms with impact on survival of adults over winter, but also on changing forage fish. So things like sand eel, which are a small silvery fish. Usually the image you see with puffins with fish in their mouths, it will be sand eels that you'll be seeing. This prey species are moving around, and it's hard for the seabirds to find out where their prey species has moved to. Another one is marine development. So this is offshore wind and tidal power and things like that. The main thing that's coming through at the minute, we obviously had the big announcement of ScotWind and all of the targets that we have coming forward for renewable energy. And we're not against renewable energy, we're just need to make sure that it's in the right place and doesn't impact on seabirds through strikes, through exclusion from foraging areas, or through migration routes, for example. So the 4 that I've highlighted so far are kind of areas that we knew about. We've been working on ways we could maybe mitigate against these 8 things. And securing our seabirds' fortunes into the future. But another one that we didn't expect a lot of people will know about is bird flu. So avian influenza are really negatively impacted on our seabirds, and it hadn't really been seen in seabirds up until last year. And then when it came through, it kind of just swept through populations. You can see this from a newspaper article online, and then the images from the Bass Rock, which Charlotte was talking about, the Seabird Centre work on. And you can see the impact just from 2021 to 2022. So it's kind of, we also have to be aware of there's changing pressures as well on our seabirds, and how do we work with them, and how do we help them into the future when things like this come up. So I'm just now going to go through some of the work that we've been doing with partners and that we work on as well internally at the RSPB on how we're trying to mitigate against some of these issues. So in terms of invasive non-native species, we've had an EU Life funded project called Biosecurity for Life. And this essentially is all about trying to ensure that we don't get invasive species on our important seabird islands. So biosecurity is basically about making sure that we have mitigation plans in place, we have responses in place, and it's all about prevention rather than eradication. Eradication projects are really expensive and can be really hard to make sure they're successful. Amazing when they are successful, but it's better to prevent than it is to eradicate. So the Biosecurity for Life project was basically working across the whole of the UK with ourselves, National Trust and the National Trust for Scotland, looking at our really important SPAs. So our SPAs are special protected areas, and they're essentially the best areas for seabirds, for birds and seabirds when we're talking in the marine environment. And it was about developing plans with local landowners, local communities, and ensuring that they were their voices were heard when we developed biosecurity plans, and training up volunteers as well on what to do if there was an incursion of, say, a rat on an island. And there's an example of this in the Inner Forth with Lamb Island. I think it was last year or 2 years. Charlotte might know a bit more about this. And that was the response that we saw was part of this, and with the work we've been doing with the Seabird Centre as well on this as well. So you can see it works really, really well. Another one is fisheries and our bycatch. So as part of the FFA, which is the Future Fisheries Alliance, we love an acronym. So this was ourselves, the WWF Scotland and Marine Conservation Society all came together as part of a collective to look at how do we work in the marine environment. And one of the outputs from this was our Transparency report, which is all about trying to look at how do we introduce REM with cameras, so remote electronic monitoring with cameras. And this is essentially about making sure getting cameras on boats looking at fishing gear, so we can quantify what's being brought up, whether it be what fish, what's the bycatch issue in terms of seabirds, for example. And just how do we work with this new knowledge? How do we work with industry and government to ensure that we can reduce that bycatch? So it's all about quantifying and really giving scientific basis to what's happening at sea, and also where's the fishing effort happening as well. Another report that we had off of the back of this consortium of WWF, Marine Conservation Society and ourselves was Shifting Gears, Achieving Climate Smart Fisheries. And this was all about looking at what is the impact of the fishing industry on climate, on their carbon, what's their carbon footprint essentially, and coming up with potential solutions, looking at changing fuel types away from diesel, and then also looking at what different gears, what impact they have. So towards gears and that sort of example, and what issues they have on the benthic habitats. Sorry, that's what I'm trying to say. With marine development, we have our Powering Healthy Seas, Accelerating Nature Positive Offshore Wind. Offshore wind is massive. We've seen all the announcements recently from government about the targets they want to reach for renewable energy and energy security. And we're not against renewable energy, but it has to be in the right place. We have to make sure that we can deliver a nature positive future for our seabirds and for our marine environment alongside all of these demands on our marine environment, including offshore wind. And this report was all about looking at the solutions that had input from industry, but it was also a consortium of NGOs from across the UK that came together to try and give this a voice, to try and highlight to government, how do we do that? How do we deliver that? And lastly, with bird flu, there's little that we can do directly for seabirds that are infected with bird flu, but there's a lot that we can do about building resilience in our seabird populations, and that's a lot of what our advocacy is around bird flu. I've spoken through some of the areas that we've worked on, some of the reports we've highlighted to address the other issues that seabirds face. And it's about working with government and industry and the public as well to try and get this message across the line on how we build resilience, how do we build like longevity into our populations. We're also undertaking surveys on some of the worst impacted seabird species in Scotland and across the UK to try and figure out what's happened and how do we go forward and what species might need our help the most going forward. So a little bit about our current work. Within the Butte House Agreement, so the Butte House Agreement is the agreement between the Scottish National Party and the Scottish Greens to form a partnership government. And essentially within that, we have two commitments that are associated with marine protected areas. The first one is to ensure that we have management measures in place for our marine protected areas. At the minute, not all of our marine protected areas have management measures in place. And the process for consulting on what these measures should be, like what fishing techniques should be banned from what areas within MPAs, it's been divided into offshore and inshore. So we're expecting the consultation for offshore to come in spring this year and for inshore to come at the end of this year. And they should be in place by the end of 2024. In regards to the other one, commitment in the Butte House Agreement is this new designation called highly protected marine areas. And this is essentially the creme de la creme of protection. It goes above and beyond what we currently have, and it's a whole site approach. It protects everything within the boundary of this new designation if they're created. And the commitment there is to have 10% of our seas as this HPMAs by 2026. And we're currently working on our consultation response at the moment as this consultation is live, and that kind of leads us on nicely to our little on how you can help at the minute. So we have an e-action as part of the Marine Group at Scottish Environment Link, and Scottish Environment Link are basically a consortium of e-NGOs, so environmental non-government organisations that have come together and are calling on the creation of ocean recovery zones for Scotland's seas. Ourselves, Scottish Wildlife Trust and the Seabird Centre are all members of this. And we're essentially just asking people to head over to this link and just show their support and to find out a bit more about HPMAs and how they could get involved with the consultation. So that's everything from me. So I just want to say thanks, and I will hand back over to Jessica.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Ali. Those are both really awesome talks. I think the final presentation is going to be from the Scottish Wildlife Trust. So we've got Elouise Cartner, who is the engagement officer within our Living Seas team. So that's a group of 3 of us. So she's going to give a little bit more information about some volunteering schemes that we have going on within the Scottish Wildlife Trust, and also what you can do to get involved. So I'll hand over to Elouise.
Thank you, Jess. Can I just confirm that you can all see my screen? Yep, you can all hear me. Good stuff. All right. So yeah, just a quick whirlwind before we get to the Q&A. We want to leave enough time to get through your questions today. So yeah, my name's Elouise and I work with the Living Seas team alongside Jess and also our Marine Policy Officer, Rebecca Crawford. So at the Living Seas team in the Scottish Wildlife Trust, this is really our marine team. It encompasses all the marine work that the Scottish Wildlife Trust is involved in. Now we have 2 key areas of work. We have our policy and advocacy work, and we have our community engagement work. And most importantly, we're always exploring the areas that these 2 pieces of work intersect. So we work closely with everyone from government to industry, academics, lots of key stakeholders, including the public as well, to ensure that marine ecosystem health is prioritised in the decisions that we make. Now, I'd like to just talk a little bit about some of the work that the Trust does, in particular work on Handa Island. So Handa Reserve is actually a really great example of where the Trust's research and policy work intersects really brilliantly with our engagement work. So for those of you who maybe don't know where Handa is off on the west coast off Sutherland, and it's managed by the Scottish Wildlife Trust. And the spectacular seabird cliffs are a huge, huge draw for tourists. So we get hundreds of visitors every summer who flock to come and see the seabirds at Handa Island. Every summer, we also have a programme of monitoring that's undertaken. So we have a seasonal ranger, and we also have lots of volunteers as well. who'll then collect lots of research around breeding seabirds. We have species like Arctic and great skua there. And this provides really vital data on the seabird populations that we then use in our policy and our advocacy work. So one really good example of this is from last season, and it was actually, unfortunately, the outbreak of avian flu that we've already touched upon in this session. So sadly, we know that great skuas bore a huge cost to this avian flu outbreak. So the All Island Census actually revealed to us that there was a massive 75% decline in great skua territories since the last count in 2018. And colonies all across Scotland are experiencing this as well, which is really sad. Within Scotland, we'd say that we actually shelter about 60% of the breeding population of great skuas, 60%. So this already has been a massive, massive decline in this species, which is obviously very concerning. But it's important for us to be able to take those measures and evaluate the impact so that we can then use that as evidence in our policy and our advocacy work. So I just, on that note, just say that we are actually currently recruiting for volunteers on HANDA. So Jess is going to pop a link just now into the chat box. Honestly, it is a spectacular once-in-a-lifetime experience to spend time on HANDA with the seabirds, getting involved in this amazing conservation work. So I would highly recommend just having a look at our volunteer opportunities, and if you are available to get involved, please do express your interest. You won't regret it. We do have lots of other volunteer opportunities available on our website as well. But a quote I want to share from last season's ranger, just while we're talking about this, she said, "HANDA may be quietened, but we must continue to raise our voices to break that silence and call on actions to support our seabirds through this crisis and return to a noisy, joyous, thriving life." So we do have a blog from last season's ranger as to her experiences on HANDA, and Jess will pop that in the chat box as well. Now, while we're talking about great skuas, we have to give a shout out to our collaboration with the band Sea Power, who worked with us to really shout about the huge seabird declines we were experiencing last year and that we unfortunately are continuing to experience. So I'm not going to play it just now, just do check it out if you're interested. I think it's really important to explore those cultural connections, to bring in broader audiences and inspire more people to understand the problem and connect with the solution as well. Talking about seabirds, we have to give a shout out to the Seabird Education Pact that we developed in partnership with the Royal Scottish National Orchestra. So this was part of the project called Yo-Yo and the Little Ox. You can find this all online, excuse me, but there's also a link in the chat box to check out the resource pack. So it has everything from, different activities you can do, regardless of where you are, regardless of whether you're near the coast or in a really urban area, whether you're indoors or outdoors. There's lots of really great activities for early years to really get involved in seabird conservation and learn more about birds in general. Here we go. Right. So if we have time, I'm just conscious of time. I'm not going to play this video because we're just a wee bit shy of time, but just to give a shout out to the Oceans of Value project. So this was a project that's been based up in Orkney that we've just finished up on, and it was all about connecting with the coastal community and understanding how valued the marine environment is, how it affects the day-to-day lives of everyone, from individuals to groups to industry and so on. And there were lots of really great comments that came from that with regards to seabirds. So I've just highlighted a couple here. So people said they'd noticed a decline in seabirds, which has been unfortunate. People commented on things like, some of the threats we talked about, like plastics and things like that. The video itself, the film, is actually 30 minutes long, but if you go on YouTube, you can see little clips. Some of them are maybe 30 seconds, some are 5 minutes. I would encourage you to have a look because it is really eye-opening. And we will be taking the Oceans of Value film on tour across the country because we want to ask more people how they feel about our oceans and, you know, the work that's going on to protect them. Are we doing enough? What do we really need to step up in terms of protecting our seas? And then maybe last but not least, we worked with the Scottish Seabird Centre last year as well, and we made a snorkel trail around East Lothian. So we basically highlighted lots of really great places to snorkel around the coast. So connecting people with nature, getting them in the water and excited about what's there. And of course, we highlighted seabirds on this too, because when you're at these sites, you can't help but see the stunning diversity of seabirds along the coast. So definitely recommend checking out the snorkel trail. And then, yeah, we have lots of other options as well. So things like Adopt Puffin, we've got these eco-friendly gift packages if you're looking for a nice gift for somebody. I know that this Christmas, me and my family decided, instead of buying each other gifts, we decided to buy sort of, you know, more kind of sustainable minded things like adoptions and things like that. So if you're so inclined, please have a look. And yeah, please join us for our future webinars. So the next webinar will be next week, which is squid and other ocean invertebrates, which is looking like a really exciting session. After that, the following week, we'll have a session on salmon. And then last but not least, we'll have marine mammals. So our cetaceans, whales, dolphins, and porpoise, and potentially seals as well. So thank you for listening. And I'll hand back over to Jess.
Thanks very much for that, Elouise. Yeah, I think there has been a question from Norman who's actually asked if there would be some links detailed somewhere or could be sent to the attendees. I think we're trying to put them in the captions on the YouTube video. Is that correct, Elouise?
Yeah, so yeah, trying to find a place to share them centrally. I think what we will do is we'll ensure that we put them in the comments section of the YouTube video. And for those people who want to check them out, we'll maybe just put them, you know, sort of Charlotte, and then we'll have a few links for her talk, and then Alistair and so on.
Okay, that's brilliant. Just it's good to know that everybody is enjoying all of the links though, so that's nice. All right, I think we have just a final poll, and it is: would you support increased protections for seabirds following these 3 presentations? So I'll just leave that for a few seconds. Hopefully the outcome's positive.
Yeah, we're sitting at 100% right now, so I think you guys have done a good job.
That's excellent. All right, I think we'll probably 100%. That's great. All right, thank you, everybody. And thank you for joining in the polls. It actually is really useful to us to see what people actually think are important threats and how much they know about certain topics for our kind of future engagement work. So shall we move on to the questions and answers? I can see that some of them have already been answered. Hopefully, Alfie, your question on what you could do to build a career in seabird ecology, maybe some of the volunteering that Elouise has suggested might kind of help with that. So we've got one open question at the moment. In response to the blurb for this webinar suggesting guano fertilizing the marine food chain, is in seabird colonies the sheer amount of guano not toxic for other organisms? So I don't know who wants to answer that. Maybe Charlotte first.
Well, I was going to say I left that one for Ali.
Right, move on to Ali.
I don't know the level at which it would become toxic. I do know it's incredibly important for the nutrient cycle between the marine environment and the terrestrial environment. They're one of the key components of moving nutrients from the sea onto land. And in some cases, it's the only way in which small outcrop islands get any nutrients on them in the first place, allowing plants and things to go and allowing a community to develop. There was a really nice article by the Natural History Museum actually on this, on the nutrients that seabirds provide for the terrestrial environment. So I'll try and see if I can get the link, and I'll pop that in the chat for people as well. And that will hopefully give you a bit more of an answer to your question. But in all honesty, I don't know and a full response to your question, sorry.
All right, brilliant. Any more questions that people do want answered, or any follow-ups if you want more information on the answered questions? You can see they're in the answered tabs. So our presenters have been really good at kind of trying to answer all of these.
Jess, sorry, if I may, just jumping in on the question about getting into ecology as a career in marine science.
Yeah.
We actually made, so yeah, thanks. One of our online resources we've made is a marine careers diving pack. So it's been tailor-made for kind of secondary school ages, but also other people that have read it have said that they've benefited from it as well, so university students, placements. So I'll pop a link to it in the chat, but it's basically a little booklet which contains different role profiles of different jobs in the sector and how people have got into them, is like interviewing the people in those roles and advice and stuff. So I'll pop a link into the chat and hopefully it's useful.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you for that. I don't know if Ali actually had any suggestions as well in terms of getting into seabird ecology, careers-wise.
I would say that just seeing what the SWT have and what Seabird Centre have as well on their websites and everything that's been mentioned so far. I'll not lie, it was very hard to get into seabirds. There's not a lot of marine jobs, but it is definitely possible as we're here. So it's just taking advantage of any opportunities, getting in touch with people like ourselves, and seeing what opportunities that we have. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Yeah, attending talks like this as well. But specifically, we do have volunteering opportunities. We will be doing more surveys and stuff as well across the UK off the back of HPI and stuff. And just keep an eye out on our volunteering web page as well. And there'll be things come up on that as well for kind of one-off volunteering or longer term volunteering as well.
I would also add to that as well, don't be afraid to create your own opportunities. So, you might find that perhaps the opportunities aren't really prevalent in your area, or maybe they're just not suitable to your situation. Just do what you can. So do you like making videos? Like start a vlog, or get out and actually take some videos of birds near you and start to identify them. A really good citizen science app as well, which you may be familiar with, is iRecord. It's a really interactive platform. You can download it onto your phone, or you can use it on the computer, and you can just take photos of anything. It doesn't have to be birds, any wildlife at all, and you join a community of biological recorders, and you can share images and comment on each other's. It's really good fun actually, and it will really help in building up your ID skills.
Brilliant, thanks for that, everybody. We just got one final question. Do you find that tourist boat companies have a negative and or positive impact on seabirds? They can also help in protecting them as well. We'll just start with Charlotte and then we'll go to Ali.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good and valid question. So obviously, all this wonderful going out and seeing the marine environment, you've got to do it responsibly. And certainly in the UK, there are schemes in which boat skippers are trained up to do responsible talk operating companies, and the ones that we operate ourselves are sure to have training and make sure that when they're approaching the island and the seabirds, they do it respectfully. But absolutely, the last thing we want is to be disturbing these wonderful seabirds that are there. And certainly there are countries that do it well, and unfortunately other countries that don't do it so well. So there's definitely levels to that, and definitely improvements that need to happen in some instances.
Thank you. Ali, do you want to add anything onto that? Or?
I don't have much to add to that, really. It's kind of, Charlotte summed up really nicely. there is the Scottish Marine Wildlife Watching Code, which operators can sign up to and is available for people to look at. And I think Marine Wise, I think as well, is a training program that people, boat operators can go through. And yeah, and it's just about how do you engage with the species and the environment? How do you give them enough space? And we're there to enjoy seeing that spectacle, but we have to obviously remember they're wild animals just going about their day. So yeah, so just so have a wee, if you have a Google, you can see what operators have these accreditation, and yeah, and just have a look and make your choices from there.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Yep, I think that's all of the questions answered. So we will wrap that up there. So our next talk, as Elouise said, is going to be on squid and other ocean invertebrates, which is kind of my background, so I'm very much looking forward to it. But yes, thank you to all of the speakers and to everybody for taking the time in your evening to kind of listen, and hopefully all of the links are very useful and you got a lot out of it. And any feedback you want to put into the comments, feel free, we like feedback. So yeah, have a great evening everybody, and thank you very much for joining.
Thank you. I'm just going to stop the record now, everybody, okay?